It's Jody with All About the Harvest. Today we're going to talk about canning jars and lids. Do you have a bunch of canning jars that you're not sure what to do with? Do you have a bunch of random jars just sitting around your house that you're not sure if you can use for canning or some other use? And what about lids? Do you have questions on which lids I can use? Can I reuse them? Can I not? Today I'm here to clarify all of those questions. For all things food related, make sure to subscribe to my channel and hit that bell button so you're notified each week when I release a new video. So the first thing we're going to be talking about is jars. Jars come in regular mouth and in wide mouth. The common sizes for canning jars are quart jars and pint jars. So I'll just show you with these pint jars. So this is a regular mouth pint and this is a wide mouth pint. And you can see the difference. Regular mouth and wide mouth are standard across canning jars. So if you get, and we're going to talk about lids in a moment, but if you get regular mouth lids or wide mouth lids, they will fit on any of a normal canning jar for a regular or wide mouth. So let's talk about sizes of jars next. The biggest canning jar that's safe is the half-gallon canning jar. The half-gallon canning jar comes in regular and wide mouth, although now I've only been finding wide mouth. This is a regular mouth. This is an older jar, but this is a regular mouth. For canning, you notice this is not something that I can. This is actually dehydrated marshmallows. They are wonderful, by the way, better than regular marshmallows in my opinion. And if you want to know more about what I do with these and how to actually make them, I have a video that I created on this, and what I'll do is I will link it in the end card and I'll also put it in the description below so you can check that out. But right here I have a half-gallon jar for dehydrated marshmallows. Now you can use half-gallon jars for all sorts of dried goods, but the only things that are safe that you can use them for with canning is apple juice and grape juice. Those are the only safe, tested, and approved recipes for canning in the half-gallon jar. Now, I know your grandmother or mother or great-grandmother might have used them for other things. Maybe you use them for other things. On my channel, I just teach about safe, tested, approved recipes and canning techniques. So the only thing that's safe in half-gallon jars is the apple juice and then the grape juice. But I use a lot of these for dehydrated goods, which we'll talk about. Then the next common size, or the most common size, is quarts, and then again the pints. And the quarts, again, I have here a regular mouth and a wide mouth. Then we have the pints, and with the pints, you'll see we have the wide mouth and the regular mouth, but they also have different fancy jars. So this is a little bit more fancy, but it is still a pint jar. So you can use them for whatever. I use whatever I have available. Now this is a size that isn't quite so common, but I actually love it. This is a 1.5 pint jar. So this particular jar, these jars only come with the wide mouth. I like them. You see I have pickled asparagus in here. I also make taco meat, and I put the taco meat in here and I can it, and I like it. It fits like 1.25 pounds of taco meat. So I can that as well. These next 4 sizes, they're all 8-ounce jars. So your typical. And then this is an older jar. It's hard to see, but it has like grapes and stuff. So I think back in the day, people used this for like jams and jellies. This is a new jar that I got. This is the first time I was able to purchase 8-ounce jars that are wide mouth. Typically, your 8-ounce jars are the small mouth, but these were wide mouth, and I love them. I got these at Walmart during COVID. And then this is another kind of a fancy jar. This is an 8-ounce jar as well. And in here I actually canned some mango sauce. This summer there was a great deal on mangoes at my local grocery store. 50 cents each, and so I canned up a bunch of mango sauce and I put it in these jars. And then the last is 4-ounce jars, and I use them for, this is mustard, it's a cranberry mustard. I also make a Dijon mustard as well. So I use the 4-ounce for that, but there's other things that you can use each of these for. So I just wanted to kind of show you the different sizes of the jars and some of the things you can do with them. So these are canning jars. But now I want to explain a little bit about non-canning jars. And how are you going to know the difference between canning jars and non-canning jars? So typically, canning jars there's name brands. And it's hard to see because I have food in here, but Ball and Kerr are the major name brands for canning jars. There's also Golden Harvest, there's also Anchor Hocking, and I'm not sure if you'll be able to see this or not, but this says Ball, wide mouth, and you'll typically know because they'll have their label on it somewhere. So any of those that I just mentioned, Ball, Kerr, Golden Harvest, or Anchor Hocking are good. Anything that it says a mason jar or it's canning generally will work out well, but if you stick with those 4 name brands, you'll be good. Now, things that aren't canning jars and how can you use them? So, for example, mayonnaise jars, pickle jars, peanut butter jars, if your peanut butter comes in a jar, those type of jars you can wash and reuse, but I do not use them for canning. I only use them for dehydrated goods. So for example, this particular jar is a smooth-sided jar. It might have been like I don't know, could have been a relish or something from a store. I'm not really sure what was in it, but this particular jar doesn't have any markings on it. It's not a Ball or Kerr brand. I know that. You can look on the bottom too. So these I do not use in canning, and why I don't use them in canning. A lot of people may try to use these in canning, and some people will say, okay, just use them in water bath canning and not pressure canning. The reason you don't want to use these is the glass isn't always as strong and as thick as actual canning jars. So you don't want to put all this work into making this food and then go and can it and then it breaks. That would be a very sad, sad day in the kitchen. So I just don't use them. What I use them for are my dehydrated goods. So like you saw here with the dehydrated marshmallows. So I just recently got this jar, and this particular jar is not a canning jar. It doesn't say anything that would lead me to believe it's a canning jar. Generally, canning jars don't look like this. This to me reminds me more of a mayonnaise jar or a pickle jar. But back in the day, people may have used this. I'm just telling you what's currently recommended today, 2021. And the beauty of these is that you can take, if the ring and the lid from a regular canning jar fits on this jar, perfect. So a lot of times these jars are really old. You might get them in rummage sales or thrift stores, things like that, or from a family member. and they've been sitting in their basement and the lids are old and they're, might be a salad dressing jar. That's probably what this was. You can reuse these for dehydrated goods as long as you get a lid that can fit on there. So what I do a lot of times is I'll just test it. So this is a regular wide mouth canning jar. And so I put that on and it fits perfectly. So I know that I can actually use this for canning, for putting my dried goods in, not for canning, but for putting dried goods in. And so here's an example of that. So here I took a bag of lentils and it was a little bit more than a bag, but I put a bag of lentils in this jar. I actually cut out the directions on how to cook the lentils. I put them in here, and then I actually vacuum sealed the top of this. So it actually has a seal. So I'm lifting this up by that lid. It's not coming off. So I vacuum sealed this so it's airtight, and these lentils will store a lot longer in an airtight situation like this than in a bag that might have a hole in it. Depending on where you live, if you live down south, or on a farm, or areas that you might be able to have more rodents in your area, they can get through those plastics, but the jars are amazing. So I don't have mice problems or anything like that here, but I do like to store my dried goods in jars. Now these aren't things, this is a dried good. I did not dehydrate this, but I just like to store it here for a longer shelf life. Here's another example of a dried good. This is something I dehydrated myself. This is raw celery leaves and stalk. And I actually just reused a Bertolli sauce jar. So this particular lid is not going to fit the regular mouth. It's too small. But what I did is, because I just wanted to reuse it, I put the dehydrated celery in here and then I put the lid on. Sometimes, and there's various ways you can actually get this lid to suck in using a vacuum sealer. But for me, I wasn't too worried about it. I just wanted to get them in something that was glass. You can also, if you don't have a vacuum sealer, you can use oxygen absorbers. So I could have put an oxygen absorber in here that would suck the air out and then make this lid tight. Okay, and then another thing that I did is, here are the dehydrated marshmallows, and I did vacuum seal that top on these again, so it's on there nice and tight. But what I ended up doing is I took some of them out and I put them just in, this was an old olive jar. So an olive jar that I washed out, I take the labels off, and then I have these mini marshmallows here. So if I'm gonna make hot cocoa, or if I'm gonna put these in coffee or use them in various other ways, I have this jar that it's up here, and I don't have to go through the big half-gallon jar. I don't have to have that up in my cupboards. I can just have this small jar. So I'm not really worried if it's airtight or not, because I'll be going in and out of this. Now, I didn't have to, I could have put them in one of these jars as well. So this was that other pint-sized jar that isn't a canning jar, it's just a regular jar, and I could have put some in here, and then I can vacuum seal this so that it's airtight, and then I could have that up, upstairs or in my kitchen. So basically anything that I dehydrate or anything that's a dry good, to me, is fair game to put in jars. Generally speaking, I use more jars like this and this. I use jars that kind of look like canning jars, but they're not, or I don't think they are canning jars. I use those more than I use these, but sometimes I just want to use these up for something, so I'll use that. Now, you can use canning jars for all your dehydrated goods. So 100% you can use the canning jars. That's what I've done when I didn't have extra non-canning jars. Well, for example, for this, I'm using, this is an actual canning jar. This you can safely can in. So if you have canning jars and you don't know, you're not going to can, but you want to use them for something else, you can use them for your dehydrated goods, any dried goods. I have a big one downstairs, the wide mouth half-gallon. I have dill heads in there that I dry for when I'm pickling. So I have big things of dill. I have all sorts of herbs and spices in various jars downstairs. So a few other uses for random jars or canning jars. You can use them to give people gifts. So you can make a dried cake mix or a cookie mix or any dried good, and you can put them in one of these jars and give them as a gift. So that's another use. You can also use canning and non-canning jars for fermenting food. So I use them a lot for fermenting any type of thing. Those big pickle jars, those, or big olive jars, the really big ones, those you can use if you're having a bigger batch of something. So you can use them for fermenting. You can also use different jars for making tinctures. I have different jars going with vanilla in. I'm actually making vanilla extract, so I have different jars for that. I'm not using canning jars for that. It's gonna sit for a long time. So I'm not using my canning jars for that. I have various tinctures going with different mushrooms and different things like that are going, and those are sitting in jars with a lid on. It doesn't need to be an airtight lid, but they just need to sit and have time. And so I generally use my non-canning jars for that, because I want my canning jars freed up for when I actually need to can something. So those are just a few more ideas of ways that you can use canning and non-canning jars. So comment below and let me know if you have random jars sitting around your house. I want to know how you use your jars. Was there something that I missed? Some other way to use these jars? I'd love to know. So make sure you put that in the comments below. Okay, so now let's cover lids. So normal canning lids are 2-piece lids. And I showed you this a little bit before, but this is the lid and this is the ring. They come in this gold color or they come in a silver color. But in today's day and age, it's 2 pieces. And one goes on top of the jar and then the ring goes over it. The thing that you need to know, and this is important about rings and lids, is the rings are reusable. So this part can be reused over and over and over again. Generally speaking, the lids cannot be reused. There are some reusable lids, and I'm going to talk about those in a minute, but I'm talking about these lids, not the reusable lids. So these particular lids, you buy these there's a dozen in a box. They're a one-time use. So what you want to do with these is you save your rings, and then your lids you are not going to reuse for canning. You can, however, reuse them for dehydrated goods. So with my dehydrated marshmallows, this lid I had already used for, I think it was grape juice. I washed it, cleaned it off, I took the marker off the top, and then I reused it for this. You can reuse this unlimited times for resealing a jar, or just putting a lid in a ring on a jar without vacuum sealing it. You can use it unlimited times. You can only use it once for canning. Now I know there might be some people out there that say, well, my mom or my grandmother has reused lids, a number of times. So I understand that some people have done that. It's not considered a safe canning practice. So I just reuse my lids for my dehydrated goods. The rings, you can use these as many times as you want. Sometimes they will get a little rusty after use. I don't like a lot of rust on mine, so I do end up recycling them, like using them for other things or giving them to other people. the beauty of the rings is you don't need as many rings as you need lids. So as you can see, none of these jars have rings on it, but my dehydrated goods do have the rings on it, and there's a reason for that. So it's recommended to not store your jars with the rings on. So when I'm actually canning and I'm putting this in the canner and I take it out, I will let this sit with that on. But after 24 hours, I wash the jar, I take this off, I wash this, I wash everything. And then when I store this, I just store this like this. I do not store it with a ring on, and there's a reason for that. If for some reason this particular jar had a false seal or didn't properly seal, or the seal came undone in storage, I may not know that if this ring is on it, because it would be pushing down on that lid, creating a false seal. So they recommend not storing with the rings on, so that if for some reason this seal fails, that you would know it. I mean, you'd be able to pick it up. You'd rather know it before you consume it, because if you consume it, it could be deadly. So you really need to be safe about the storing of the rings. The beauty of that is these rings are reusable. So I store all of my canned items without the rings on, and then when I go to use them or I gift them, I will give them a ring, because something like this is bruschetta, and I might not use this all in one setting. So what I will do is then I'll put the ring on and I'll put it in the fridge after I've opened it. So I do keep them obviously for that reason as well. You don't want to stack your jars more than too high for that same reason. You don't want there to be pressure from these jars to push on, creating this false seal. So I actually just have mine singly stacked. I don't actually double stack them. So let's talk about the sealable or the reusable lids. So the reusable lids there's two name brands out there that I'm aware of. One is Tatler and one is Harvest Guard. And those particular lids are reusable. They are a little bit different. I have not used them. I find these lids to be just fine. They are a little bit more expensive, but you get more life out of them, so you do end up getting your money back. They do take some getting used to, so you can have a lot of failures in the beginning if you're not using them properly. So if you go to either of their websites, which I'll link their websites below in the description, if you go to either of their websites, you will be able to read up on how to use them. They give you all the information that you need. So reusable lids are something that you can do. Again, they're more expensive, but they are reusable. I particularly like the regular lids, and that's what I'm going to stay with for now. I don't have any reason to change. The other thing that I wanted to mention is, how do you open your jars? I actually use just a regular can opener, 99 cents. I got at Walmart. This one actually is a magnet, so I stick it on my fridge, and when I go to open a jar, I literally I use this end. I don't use this end. I use this end, and then I pry the lid off that way. Now, my husband will use his hands, and he'll just like peel this back with his hamstring, and he's doing that, to save the lid so I can use it for dehydrated goods. But even if I use this, I could still reuse that lid for dehydrated goods. For me, I don't have as much of the hand strength as he does, and so I just use this. So that's a real easy way of how to open your lids. Now, with dehydrated goods, these you can do with your hands. Sometimes you can't, but these you can do with your hands. You heard that. So it was airtight. So you can do the vacuum sealed ones with your hands, no problem. Okay, so for lid name brands, again, it's Ball versus Kerr, Kerr, or Ball. They're made by the same company. Those are the most common lid name brands. Walmart has a brand that they have their own brand. Golden Harvest has jars, so on their jars they have lids, and I think those are like the basic, they don't have anything on it, these are just gold. If you see like a Ball or a Kerr one, they have their logo on it. And it depends, each year it's kind of a little bit different, but regardless, they all work. So lids, especially nowadays with COVID, lids are hard to find. If you don't have lids or you need lids, then you just got to get whatever you can get. I've not used the Walmart brand because I haven't had to. I have enough lids, so I don't need to use a Walmart brand. And also the Walmart brand normally is not the cheapest, so I actually go to another store for my cheaper priced lids. And I actually have a video on that I created. I'll link that into the end screen and also into the description below. I have a video where I share over 20 different locations and tips on how to find jars and lids during COVID. So, or just in general, but definitely during COVID I have found some, and I share tips. I also share prices. So best and worst prices and where to look and where not to look. So check that video out. Like I said, I'll link it in the description below and also in the end card of this video. Are you interested in canning and not sure where to start? I have created a free intro to canning guide that will answer all of your beginner questions. I will link the guide in the description below this video. Go ahead and check it out. If you've liked this video and are interested in more canning videos, subscribe to my channel and hit that bell button so you can be notified when I post a new video each week. Also, if you have friends that may be interested in the content of this video, please share it with them. Well, that's it for this video. I hope you learned something about jars and lids. If you have any questions or if there's anything else you want me to cover, just go ahead and put that in the comments below and I'll be sure to follow up. And how to use them, or how... Do you have questions on... Why is that? Pint and quart jars. Pint and quart jars come